What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and today we have an amazing episode in store for you. Obviously, on my last episode last night with Tyler Stringfellow, covered the insane, results from the Sox Yankees wildcard game, covered Stephon Gilmore going to the Carolina Panthers, as well as reviewing the Tom Brady versus Bill Belichick reunion game. Had a great show over there. But today I have an amazing guest on the program with me. You've seen him many a times before, and I felt that it was only necessary that I get him on the program for this because, it's once we get into it, you'll only see how appropriate it is. Please welcome back to the show, Joe Laflamme, A.K.A. Hey, Kami. Man, how you doing today?
Doing well, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing really well, man. Having a pretty good time, with the Sox advancing to the ALDS, having some fun with that. Was kind of living on pins and needles for the past couple weeks or so, trying to just hope that they don't screw it up. And they almost did against the Orioles, but we somehow managed to survive against the Nats, make it in, and it's been a pretty good ride.
Yeah, no, it has been. You swept it there in the final series of the year, and man, it came down to the wire, and
Thank you for the plug.
There you go. But no, just the fact that it was Yankees Red Sox 1-game wild card that never happened before in Fenway Park, that's the perfect place for it, right?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean,
not new Yankee Stadium, but no, man, it was nuts that it would all, and with the Jays being in it right up to the end too, it was a really great. What an AL East, though, a historical AL East.
Usually when you think of a fourth place team in a division, you're not thinking of someone that is anywhere close to being in contention at all. Even third place, usually there's some years where it's kind of a interesting debate, but usually it's first and second are the teams where it's the people kind of dogging it out, trying to really make a run at the division, and then three can sometimes be in it, but not as much. They might be a mid 80s or low 80s win team, and then fourth and fifth usually are kind of towards the cellar in the division. But you look at the Toronto Blue Jays, finished fourth in the division. Now, a couple games go differently. They could have been hosting the wild card, which is wild. It's insane, just based on the fact of how good each team in this division is. It's arguably, I'd have to say, the best division in all of sports. I don't think you could see another division that has as much success as the AL East.
Yeah, no, it's 100% the AL East, and think about it this way: the Jays had 3 home fields this year. They played in Buffalo, they played in Florida. They didn't play in Toronto until late July. I believe July 30th was their first game in Toronto.
I think you're right.
And
I don't think that doesn't get talked about enough. The fact that they had to play in 3 different home stadiums and still the success that they had.
Yeah, and one of them was in Buffalo. They were playing in New York was one of their home stadiums, and I don't know if you saw any of those games. Or even when the Red Sox came in, it was they didn't have a home game legitimately until July 30th.
Until the trade
crowds. Yeah, the crowds that came were not home crowds for that team, right? They had the home field advantage of hitting last, but that was it, because every single game that they played until July 30th was at least by the feel of the fans, probably felt like a road game for them.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. I know for the most part, in Canada, even after that, there were still COVID restrictions in the stadium. I think there were still weren't there still capacity limits of some kind, even once they did come back.
I believe the last series they got it up to 30,000 people, from 15. So it's 15 for, I believe, 35 games, and then the final 3 were finally 30,000 fans.
Yeah, so they really never got a fair shake of it, at all.
No, and when they finally got home to Rogers Center, I believe they were 25-11. So they went off when they finally had home fans, cheering them on. And the other thing was that they were right there with Tampa Bay for run differential. They were plus 180, I think, on run differential. They were more. I think if you look at it, it's they had a higher positive run differential than the Yankees, Red Sox, Cardinals, Oakland, Seattle put together, because Seattle was negative awesome. 50. So you just pretty much offset them with Oakland. But that was a team that like put up when you're doing analytically, when you think of like Moneyball and they're like, we need to score 800 runs and allow no more than 680 runs. It's like underneath the qualifications of Moneyball, that team did everything. They should have had 100 wins with their run differential.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won 9 games less than their run differential suggested that they would win. So I don't know, like they just secured their manager, Charlie Montoya, like they guaranteed that he would come back next year. And I was like, don't get me wrong, he's a really nice guy. He speaks Spanish, you know, he's got that about him. But to finish 9 games under what your run differential says that you should finish, don't get me wrong, they had bullpen issues for a long time, but like it's kind of a shot. Like you look at Scott Service in Seattle, and he was plus 12 on his run differential, right? He had 12 more wins than his run differential suggested that he would have. So that's like a manager going above and beyond with what he's given. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about the managerial kind of like, you know, differences and stuff like that going on in Toronto. But one thing I will say is I know, at least from a Boston sports fan's perspective, is, you know, obviously the Red Sox have kind of been the definition over the past couple of years of either being, you know, the extremes of highs and lows. You know, I know we were in the wild card this year, and, you know, we were in third place in 2019, but from like 2012 on to about now, it was either we were in dead last in the division or we were in first, like cruising. Yeah. And it was weird. But I remember, you know, 2013, 2012, we were in last place. 2013, out and win the World Series. 14, 15, dead last again. Then 16, 17, 18, it was all first place. But when it came to that second run that we made in 16, 17, and 18, there was, you know, when you looked at it, you know, the Red Sox had 2 managers during that time. It was John Farrell and Alex Cora. Farrell was solid, you know, as a pitching coach for us, you know, early on. And then he also was a good manager for us in 2013, was able to rally the troops and do his job. Then it came to around 2016, 2017, and it seemed like we were just like hitting a wall. And we had a great amount of talent. We weren't like doubtful of that, but it really just seemed like we kind of needed, you know, like just a different face in the clubhouse. We swapped John Farrell for Alex Cora, and like, I mean, we did bring in JD Martinez, who, don't get me wrong, was a big ad, but besides that, it wasn't too much of an ad besides that, you know, on our roster. And it just completely like took over, and we ended up going from, you know, just barely making it, like just, you know, kind of getting taken out in the division series to, I think it was like 108 wins, World Series champions, and just unstoppable.
Yeah. And last season, well, coming into this year, the expectations for this year were, I don't know, 81, 82 wins, like something like that, kind of middle of the pack. Hopefully a 500 season. And Cora comes in. And,
okay, yeah, but I just want to make sure you're talking about for Boston. I didn't know if you were talking about Boston or Toronto. Yeah.
No, for Boston, I think that was kind of the expectations, was that they were going to be probably 4th behind Tampa, Toronto, New York. And that's then if Boston could have a 500 season,
that's what my expectation was.
Cora comes in, and that team regains their form just instantly. And that's everything. When you've got an amazing manager like that, like
it definitely has an effect. And I mean, I don't know everything about Montoya or
Charlie Montoya.
Yeah, Charlie Montoya. I don't really know too much about him, but you know, it could just be, you know, getting a different guy in there, and the Blue Jays with Barrios and all those guys, and, you know, freaking Vladdy and his age, and only his age 23 season and everything like that. And they could just take off. It's really like, it really could just be like that.
Oh yeah. They definitely have a very high ceiling on what's possible. That wasn't, I don't think that was the team. They came off that final win and they were sitting there. They were very, very happy. You guys were down 5-1 to Washington. It was a tie game in New York, and I think they were optimistic that somehow one of these teams would lose. And then they sat there watching both teams win, and they're out. And I don't think, I think they're very angry, and I think that that's a good thing for 22-year-old baseball players to get that taste of missing it by that much, and being fueled in the off season to get over that slight one game hump that they came up to in the end. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's gonna be interesting for a long time. Tampa's not going anywhere. New York, which is hilarious. There were expectations for a World Series here this season. And I don't know, you go watch John Boy and it's just tears, right? It's just sadness. And they're like, there's only 3 players who are going to make the team next year. And everybody's got to go on the managerial staff. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's.
Yeah. And Kami, let me just say right now, I said it to you before. I gotta say, after watching that game and seeing the way Gerrit Cole turned into a puddle right before our very eyes, I think we got to give you a little round of applause there for your due diligence as a Red Sox fan. Thank you. And obviously, just watching that game and watching Gerrit Cole just melt down before our very eyes and just look like a little league pitcher on the mound. I mean, what were your thoughts just on that whole experience with, obviously you had been on Cole the entire year with like foreign substance. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. He was like the first guy that you went after. Yeah. So he was like the first guy that you kind of like that you guys.
April 18th, the very first video I ever made on TikTok was Gerrit Cole on Bo Bichette. And I was just like, what are you doing going after this like 22-year-old kid who's like, hasn't even had a full season in the league yet. Like, if we're gonna do the big speech about how trash can banging is ruining pitchers' careers, right? Like young pitchers who get trash can banged and sent down to the minors, not knowing what's wrong. And isn't it the same for foreign substance on young hitters?
Yeah,
and they're getting blown away, and they're like, well, what am I doing wrong here? How do I, So I just felt like that was equally evil, which it totally was. And from that point on, it was like every 5 days I had a date with watching a Gerrit Cole game. And in those first 11 starts, like I got to see some of the most godly pitching ever seen on this planet. He went 61 strikeouts without a walk.
Yeah.
Like I saw this guy who does the advanced, like really, really advanced analytics, the like Sierra, the XFIP, and all those really, really advanced metrics. And he's got this like chart of like plotted starts, and the lower that you are on the chart, it's like an 80 grading system, like for minor league players on an 80 tool. It's like 80 is the max, but it's inverted, so 80 is on the bottom. It's weird.
Yeah.
But you see, like the lower you are on the spectrum, the better your pitching performances are. And like he is absolutely at the bottom. You couldn't be any lower for his first 11 starts, and then foreign substance happens, and then it's like average, one elite start, average, terrible, average, terrible, average, pretty good, terrible. And you're like, he just shifts up an entire bracket. And he had, in his last 3 full years, I think he had 4 starts where he gave up 5 runs.
Yeah.
In his last 17 starts, he has 5 games where he's given up 5 runs. And then games, he's been pulled in the second inning against you. That was 3 with 2 on. Like, don't tell me that's not the same damn thing. Right? If you get pulled in the second inning with 2 on, you've already given up 3. The same thing happened to him against the Blue Jays. He got pulled in the second inning, having given up 4. It just all fell apart. And like, don't get me wrong, there was a hamstring injury that he had. But I feel like what I saw was the spin rate disappeared. He was expected to maintain that same level of performance. So the effort went to like absolute max effort, right? Mm-hmm. He started throwing 100 miles an hour, like mid-June, and it gave him the like pretty good performances. But like the last 3 years, you can imagine this guy has been like pitching at like 92%. He's never having to go out to 100, right? That sticky stuff is literally him being able to save his arm and never like max out his effort. Like they talk about high stress, high leverage situations, and that being really taxing on a pitcher. Well, it's just like for 3.5 years, that didn't happen to him. Mm-hmm. He never did it. He didn't come out to the mound and not have it. He always had it.
Yeah.
It was never about like trying to think your way through things. It was always the fact that he could throw a 98 mile an hour four-seam fastball that had 2,700 RPM on it. The opponents had a $180 batting average on. When you go back to his Pittsburgh days, the opponent's batting average on his fastball is 260. What's the opponent batting average on his fastball since foreign substance? It's like 271. The slug is near 500.
Yeah, so it's not even like he's gone back to Pittsburgh, Gerrit Cole. He's gone back. He's like pitching almost like worse than he kind of ever has.
Yeah, because the four-seamer worked upstairs. Now the style that he's learned in Houston doesn't work. As his season ended this year with a higher ERA than his career average.
Yeah.
Okay. So you go look at some of those years he had in Pittsburgh where he had a sub-3 ERA. It was because he'd keep his fastball low and he would get like ground balls. And you're like, oh, his FIP isn't that good, like his strikeout rate isn't that good. And it's like, well, yeah.
Okay, but he got out.
Kyle Schwarber isn't hitting the ball 440 feet.
Well,
right?
I mean, he did do that against him actually as a Cub. But point granted. Right, he did.
That is, but that goes to show that literally when he tries, when you take that stuff away from him, he's literally back to being that guy again.
No, literally. And he's not the $324 million man.
No,
it's not even close.
It's not the 324 strikeout man.
No.
So,
and I mean, listen, I was like something we also talked about. I also talked about on my show last night as well was, it'll be on Wednesday when this comes out. But when I was talking about it, I was also discussing, Gerrit Cole is, as a Red Sox fan, I'm thankful, but he is, as from a Yankee fan, he hasn't exactly been on the right side of this Red Sox Yankees rivalry in terms of success. He's kind of becoming, it's almost like the Pedro Martinez, like who's your daddy, like that kind of, like he's almost like, before Pedro kind of turned it around and had some good starts against the Yankees later on, he's almost like that kind of a character in this portion of the Red Sox Yankees rivalry. Now I know the rivalry's kind of fizzled out at this point and it's not as hot as it used to be, but like you can, it's still there, and Cole's just not anywhere close to where he should be on that in that area.
No, and
like he should be like, it should be like obviously not as passionate, but it should be like, oh, Roger Clemens coming back to Fenway, he's gonna be he's gonna be on his game, like these guys are gonna be on their game, and it's just not.
Yeah, it's just funny because like the weapons have been severely reduced for him. And it's going to take, he's going to have to figure some stuff out in the offseason because he is going to take a heck of a booing from those Yankees fans. And don't get me wrong, he's still really good.
Oh yeah.
But the persona that he put himself out there for 3 years was,
I'm the man.
Workhorse guy who's gonna never, like, remember how he was throwing in the postseason for Houston. It was just 7 innings, 12 strikeouts, 7 innings, 8 innings, 10 strikeouts, 11 strikeouts, 3 hits.
Just casually.
Yeah. And that's because he was
every time.
All the time. And that's what it was. You take that away from him, and it's just he can put up a good start, but he can also put up a bad start.
Mm-hmm. Okay? And that's where he becomes human, which he wasn't for the past 3 years.
No, the past 3 years was not human. 3 games where he gave up 5, and then 5 games where he gave up 5, and then 2, like I said, 2 more, which were well on their way to that if they would have left him in the game. Mm-hmm. So,
and I will say this, I think had this not been a 1-game playoff, Cole may have had a bit of a longer leash. I said this in my last episode as well. I think with it being the do or die aspect, there is a chance that maybe Boone takes him out anyways, just seeing that it was going downhill. But I do think that, because of how, intense it is that kind of a Game 7 atmosphere. So I think had this been like Game 1 of a 5-game or even a 7-game series, I think Boone maybe keeps him out there, maybe to like the 4th or the 5th, and just like hope something comes together. And then when it doesn't, he go to the pen.
Yeah, it was Clay Holmes who came in.
Yeah, he wasn't bad.
He came in. What's funny was he came in and actually threw like a Pittsburgh style and got like ground balls.
Yeah,
and it was like,
you
I think about the analytics people who don't like that. They're like, don't let the hitters hit the ball. And I'm like, oh man, sometimes you have to pitch to contact, sometimes that's what pitching is, not just super strikeouts. And then when that's taken away from you, you're like, what's pitching?
Yeah. There's like no other style at that point, even though there's like plenty.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Eovaldi was the perfect example. Like what's funny is I had done an Eovaldi video, I want to say in May, about how Eovaldi never did use foreign substance. Everything about him was completely legit. Yeah, no, like I watched his games and I'm like, there's nothing, like his strikeout rate never was exceptional, right? Like with 100-mile-an-hour fastball, it's never been like 10.5 K per nine or anything like that.
And listen, like I'm not gonna be stupid here. There were definitely some guys on the Red Sox that were using foreign substance. My best guess is Martin Perez, because after that came down, he actually blew up into just awful. So I'm not going to be oblivious to the fact that there were certain guys in the Red Sox probably using foreign substance. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, damn, if all these clean, that's actually ridiculous.
You didn't have $1/3 of $1 billion committed to anybody who was using it. So that's better. The same thing out of Toronto with Robbie Ray was he didn't use it. He was using the rosin bag all season. And you could see with him, his numbers in the second half of the year actually got better after foreign substance, like the enforcement came along. And but yeah, like I think I heard a lot of talk about maybe Garrett Richards for the Red Sox potentially having some issues with, but like he found himself in the bullpen, and I think he was pitching much better in the second half. But yeah, like I feel like the big obviously Bauer was a big user of it, but he's the one who kind of exposed the whole thing. There's some weird stuff about him because he's doing videos again. He seems confident that he's coming back to baseball.
He seems confident, and that's a whole nother situation. But we'll see how that plays out. But that's been interesting. But obviously you've been talking about like the Red Sox Yankees wild card game. Obviously there was another great wild card game last night. That game was a thriller, and obviously Dodgers Cardinals. That's a really nice rivalry of what they have with between each other. Like when those two teams meet up, you're usually guaranteed a good series.
Oh yeah, and another like you got Yankees Red Sox that takes you back 100 years, but Cardinals Dodgers takes you back to Stan Musial and Jackie Robinson and all the amazing players of it's just historical franchises, right? And yeah, no, it was an amazing game. What a combined age of those two starters was 77 years old. You got Wainwright who's 40 and Scherzer who's 37. And
Scherzer's 37, and obviously Scherzer's had as of late he's been able to prove that he's been able to stick around a lot longer. Scherzer might be like one of those guys like a Nolan Ryan type who just pitches into his 40s casually, and we just see it happen because he just looks like he doesn't really look like he's missed a beat at this point in his career. So he might be like one of those types that just continues to pitch for a very long time. But Adam Wainwright, all the credit in the world to him. I remember, I think it was 2015 or so, he was at the plate batting, and I think he either tore his Achilles or he did something to his lower body. I believe it was an Achilles. And everyone just thought this is going to be this is going to be the end of him. And for a long time, he didn't look like himself. He did not look like the Adam Wainwright of old, the ace of the Cardinals. And it was a sad story because it was like this guy's career got ruined by injuries, and you can still make the case that it did. But this season, he proved that he when healthy, he can still be a very, very good pitcher. And he came out and was awesome this year and really did give it his all in this wild card game. Obviously, he had the home run to Justin Turner, which I have a funny story about that. But what were your thoughts on Wainwright?
Well, yeah, I think he's been signing like 1-year contracts there for the last 3 years or something like that.
He just signed up.
Yeah, and Jamie Moyer comes to mind. The 49-year-old who he just stuck around forever. But there's I think what I was bringing up about Eovaldi was pitching and Wainwright is the ultimate pitcher. He's not a thrower.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a thrower anymore. His fastball is it 90?
Probably.
About 90, 91.
Yeah.
The curveball is his primary pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great curveball. I just sit there and watch his curveball all day long. It's beautiful. But
it's a great curveball. Unfortunately, though, it did get taken yard by Turner last night. It slipped out a little early. And the funny story I have with that is, I was over my dorm building and I was hanging out with a couple friends, just like watching the game. And there's this kid in the dorm. His name's Brady, and he self-admitted he's not the biggest baseball guy, and he ended up saying like he's not the biggest. He's like, I'm not the biggest guy with that. And all of a sudden Turner comes up to the plate and like, I think he had like maybe 2 or so strikes on him or something like that. And he ends up just saying, and like, there was like one pitch to him that was like right down the middle of the plate. And everyone in the dorm was just saying, why the heck aren't you swinging at that? And he just goes, just don't worry. He's waiting on the curveball. He's going to take it yard. And
just calls it.
He the very next pitch, and he got the biggest ego off of it, and he was just going nuts, and everyone's just like, you got to be joking. Like, it was the kid who just like doesn't really watch it or doesn't like really, because like we were explaining, like I ended up saying, well, if you know pitch sequencing, it could make, you could understand of how he's going to throw a curveball here with Wainwright. And he goes, do you think I know anything about pitch sequencing? You think I know anything about that? No. He's like, that was just a flat out guess.
Oh, that's funny.
And then our other friend, Tom, he was in there as well. I know Tom and Brady, kind of ironic, but completely separate. But no, so my friend Tom walks into my room afterwards. And when I'm seeing the news of the Chris Taylor home run, and I'm just like, and he goes, that was crazy. I'm like, what, did Brady predict it again? And he goes, no, I did. he's like, I'm literally standing there, and he just does the same BS. Oh yeah, Chris Taylor, I don't know anything about him. He's hitting a home run right here though, and then he just lost it.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
I think Reyes threw a hanging slider.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris Taylor, man.
And there's something about just a walk-off in the postseason. Obviously, they're always going to be electric, but like it was also just Taylor like immediately like running straight out of the, just running straight out of the box. He was like, had that intensity with him. Like that hit, like the way he was running out the box, you could have thought that, it was going to be a gap or that he was going to try to, like turn into a triple or something. And just seeing that, like that level of intensity with a home run, it just makes the postseason what it is. It's unmatched.
You can never predict the hero.
No.
You never guess who's going to do it. And the Dodgers have such depth.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching Michael Kay talk about how they have literally 2 teams of depth there. They literally sport that much talent on that team. And they're going to be, now that they're out of the wild card situation, and actually get into some real series. San Francisco, though, 106 wins against 107 wins in the division series.
That's crazy too. I mean, Dodgers Giants is also a great rivalry as well.
So, isn't it the first time that they've played each other in the postseason?
It can't be. No, I feel like they've had to have played each other.
Something. I mean, in the first time they played in a division series, I think.
It's possible. I mean, it definitely could be the first time as to where the Giants are the leading team, because typically I think during all of the Giants postseason runs, they were the wild card.
Yeah.
Or World Series runs. I think whenever they won the division, they fell out of the playoffs. I'm not too sure about that though. I'd have to look into that, but you may be right. I'm not too sure though. But that's going to be a fun series as well. The Giants, just because the Los Angeles Dodgers and just the star power that they have on their team in general, it's kind of insane to like ignore that. But you look at the Giants this year, getting Chris Bryant, who's been a great piece for them, everything involved, it's wild.
Yeah, all the old guys there that are
Posey,
found a fountain of youth. Well, yeah, the entire infield, Belt, Posey, Longoria, Crawford. That'd
be amazing for the Giants. I mean, I'm always rooting for the Red Sox, but that would be a good story of them just to get, like that kind of group of guys. They get the one more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There is a good story behind that.
and Gabe Kapler coming in and kind of like, what was he? He's managing the Phillies
Yeah.
before, yeah, before Girardi,
Mhm.
and he got canned there and comes. I think he did some sort of like, he went in the off season and did like a 6 week like analytical training camp to try to like refigure out the game or the new ways that it's played, and wow, like the way that the Giants just never faltered at any point. It's like every single series they went into, is this the series that the Giants are going to lose and the Dodgers are going to pass them? And the Dodgers were like, well, they were expected to do 108, 109 wins. They did 106,
Yeah.
and that wasn't enough.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, that wasn't enough to get the division. That's just the Giants. I did a video of like what was the craziest story of the year, and it was like I had Otani in there. I had did you think Fernando Tatis would be playing center field? You know, and I had the Giants in there. I had one other one, but I had the Giants in there, and the Giants won 2-1 over Otani. The Giants had the most votes out of anything. That was the craziest story of the season. And I'm starting to really kind of agree that that is probably the wild, above a guy who pitched really well and hit 46 home runs with 100 RBIs. No, it was this team that nobody expected to do anything.
Yeah. I mean, for a while they were comparing the Giants to the Red Sox until the Red Sox fell off after the trade deadline and, didn't really get too many pieces besides Schwarber, who I will say has been great for us. But
yeah, that was a good pickup.
Yeah, that was pretty solid. But
considering you guys were going for Rizzo, right?
We were in the running for Rizzo. I guess there are rumors that the Sox may try to still target him this offseason because I know he is a free agent. So there are rumors, I think, that the Sox could be interested in him just based on our situation at first. I don't know if we would just like make Schwarber and we'd just platoon Schwarber and Martinez between the outfield and then get Rizzo and Dahlbeck at first base. But maybe they do something like that.
I think if Rizzo comes to Boston, the way that Rizzo hits balls down the line, he's like he hits so many foul ball home runs, but those foul ball home runs get pulled 20 feet closer with that pesky pole. So he may be able to wrap a couple more around that pole, and that's 100% his swing. It's right down the line.
Oh my God, yeah.
So that's that home run that he hit there. It just wraps around that pole. I think there's a few places where that probably shoots foul.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But
they're interesting.
You've been talking about so many great stories throughout the year. I mean, we were talking, some of the things that that you had mentioned, previously was the Rays Jays series where there was like the stolen play sheet. That was
really interesting.
Yeah,
that really blew up on my page too. Like it was just a quick video, and I think it got 3.5 million views or something like that. It was nuts. Cardgate. They even had a name for it, I think, on like ESPN or something.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that it had gotten as big as that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'd seen it on like quite a few different, like I saw it on MLB Network. I saw it. I think it was on ESPN. Yeah. Wow. And the name was Cardgate, and it was nuts because it was like a little league home run. It was like a ball went to third base. It was played barehanded, and I think it was. I'm trying to think of what his name is. Guy from Arizona, Jake Lamb. Jake Lamb picks it up and just airmails it over Vladdy's head. Then Teoscar has to go get it, and Kiermaier's trying for the little league home run, and he's coming around, and he's out by a mile, and he tries to do the VR slide on Sanchez, where he goes down and Sanchez just onlays him, and he was safe, which just was another hilarious story.
Oh my God.
But he's out, but he bumps into Kirk, and Kirk's strategy card pops out of his like little wrist guard, and sure enough, Kiermaier grabs it, Kirk finds out that it's gone. He goes back and asks for it. They won't give it back to him. And you're like, okay, like gamesmanship and like, competitive edge and all that. I get it. But like, it's really like you bang into a guy and his wallet pops out and you see his wallet pops out and you take it and you put it in your pocket and he comes up and goes, hey, I bumped into you. Do you have my wallet? And you're like, no, it's just like, and then they beamed Kiermaier like 2 games later. And that like,
that just blew it up.
Cash was really angry and stuff got really steamed there. And I'm like, oh no, that's when you're being a guy, that's like kind of beanable circumstance there. Like, I'm never going to say throw at somebody, but like, that's kind of like a pretty big deal. And that kind of deserves a ball in the back, and obviously Cash was really, really angry. But like the wild kind of story about that was that I really feel like the Jays were kind of the scary team in the second half of the season. Like they were coming on really, really, really strong. And then the Yankees are playing Tampa in that final game. And Tampa had just steamrolled them in the first 2 games. Tampa has like the best offense in the American League. Tampa is just an amazing ball club. And they go into that final game of the year and they keep the Yankees to like 1 hit through like 8 innings.
Yeah.
Just embarrassing. And in the 9th inning, they bring out I'm trying to think of the bullpen arm that they brought out, puts 2 guys on. Then they bring out like Andrew Kittredge, and in his last like 7 games, his ERA is like 7.50 or something. He's just given up like 2 hits every inning.
Yeah.
And he comes in, runners on second and third, 1 out, Judges at the plate, and Stanton and Gallo are coming. Now, why would you pitch to the guy who strikes out the least in Judge when you can put him on, load the bases for the guy who leads the league in double plays, Stanton? Not Stanton's a scary guy, but like, don't get me wrong, he can roll over on one better than anybody.
Oh yeah.
And if you get Stanton to swing and miss, who is a 170 strikeout guy, then you've got the 220 strikeout guy following him in Gallo.
Yeah.
So like, as a managerial move, I'm like, load the bases. Those guy on second, the guy on first don't matter. And then the play is a weakly hit ball to second. Kittredge doesn't make a play on it. He just lets it go. It like goes at his glove and he just kind of goes like, no, I'm not going to play that. Lets it go to Brandon Lau. And if it was a force play, he's coming home. The play beats Wade at home, and it's a force out at home. Still a tie game. And then you face Gallo with 2 outs, and he didn't. He just pitched to Judge, and that situation happened, and Wade was safe because it was in the force play. And I was like, do you want to face the Yankees? I think you'd rather face the Yankees, because like no way, the way that he manages, no way he would leave those moves on the table.
Yeah.
Like that's not the way he does things. And I was like, I think he would rather, if he beats the Yankees here, the Yankees will play the Jays, and the winner of that will play the Red Sox. And he would rather it be Yankees Red Sox than Jays Red Sox. He fears the Red Sox and the Jays more than he fears the Yankees and the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Because I just, and you saw it. You saw when the Yankees came out, they fielded like a minor league baseball team there. There was like 2 threatening bats in that entire lineup. And I think Cash was like, you got the Blue Jays, you've got Barrios, you've got Ray, you've got Manoah.
Yeah.
You've got Nate Pearson, who's throwing well. You've got 4 guys on that team with 100+ RBIs. You've got Vladdy, who's hit home runs in back-to-back games against Baltimore. Like, you've got a lineup there that is terrifying. Springer was like, he was hurt. He wasn't doing well, but in the last 3 games, George Springer was back. He hit 2 home runs in the last day of the season. And that team looked terrifying again. And I think if, I'm not fingers crossed that the Red Sox pull it out against Tampa. But if Tampa goes on to win the World Series, I think their World Series run started on game 162 when they potentially threw that game so they wouldn't have to play the Blue Jays.
I mean, we'll never know. I don't think
that's
that
all my
it'll never be
wild
admitted
theory.
that I don't think they'll ever admit that they threw a baseball game just based on that. But there's always the factor, and it does make you wonder, like how a team would actually react if like how if you're a player on a team and you realize that your manager's throwing the game. Like, do you understand it almost as like, oh, this is just business, we're doing this, or does it come to your head, oh, like they don't trust me here, so I'm going to be put in a game where in a situation where I can't be successful?
To me, I think it was they played the entire season to win every step of the way, and found themselves in a position where they could lose one inning.
Mm-hmm.
They had 100 games locked up for wins, the most in the franchise history. They knew they were going to have, I think they have home field locked up in the American League.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, over Houston, right? So they knew they had everything locked up, and they said to themselves, if we lose one inning of baseball, the postseason could be easier for us. And to me, I don't put that past Kevin Cash to like earn one inning off at the very end of the season,
mm-hmm.
because it helps you.
Yeah.
Like you put yourself in that position where you can lose that game, because they just stomped the Yankees in those first two games. And then Jameson Taillon came on, and you're like, that's the guy who's going to shut down the Rays, they're always scrapping. They always score. This is the day they get shut out.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, okay, sure.
There were a couple questionable things there. And, obviously there have been many great stories already so far in the postseason and just going into it. One of the stories that's kind of gotten buried just based on, the fact that it doesn't revolve around any particular team was the memo that came out from MLB saying that they were going to end the extra inning base runner rule going forward, starting in this playoffs and obviously carrying into next season. I am really in favor of this rule personally, just because I do understand why they did this in the playoffs rather than just say, oh, we're going to hold off till 2022. And it's for the fact that if a baseball game or if a playoff game in this year is decided by an extra inning base runner for the away team, and that rule is to go away in 2022, I can only imagine the reaction from teams of just saying like this was like an illegitimate like base runner. There were some things going on here, and I was just never a fan of the rule because I liked the idea of the home team having the last at bat, like that's the advantage you get, and obviously in the ninth inning you still get that, but when it got to extra innings, it feels like, I don't know, like if you're an away team, and just get me wrong, if you're in a ballpark and it's like all right, like ninth inning, if we beat these guys, like, usually it was like, all right, we have to just survive this inning against this team, just survive the walk-off, which you do. But it's like, all right, if we survive this inning against this guys, then we got to, have a rally going. But then with this rule, it turned into, okay, if we survive this inning, we're getting a guy on second base. We got to hit him in, and then we got the lead. And I don't know. It just seemed like it just seemed like a too much of a momentum and kind of, advantage going to the away team. I know the home team gets it in that latter inning, but just automatically being guaranteed that, immediately. And I don't know. I feel like it could mess with the momentum, and I just didn't like the rule.
The thing I hated about it was the fact that you could get 2 outs and score a run.
Yeah.
Right. Like a fly ball, tag up third, fly ball, tag up, run scored, game over on 2 outs.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody was ever put on base. The pitcher never did anything wrong.
No.
And now he's losing
punished
because that runner is there. I saw it happen. I saw one of those games happen. I can't remember what the specific game was, but that exact thing happened, 2 tag ups. And that was the game. And I was like, you're going to punish a pitcher for that?
No.
You're going to hang a loss on him for that? Like, that's just, it was diabolical. It was disgusting. And
yeah.
And to me,
technically, I don't think the runner counted against their ERA, but I think it did still count as a loss. So I'm just like,
yeah, it still counts as a loss. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you're messing with like their whole record and their stats and everything.
Yeah. And you're telling me that you come out and you don't do anything wrong and you're a loser? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense in baseball.
Yeah.
And what I think the game, we're so obsessed with like power hitting and slugging is such a part of the game. Guys are going up there to try to hit the 3-run home run, or they're very walk, focused, and they're maybe the exact opposite thing. You've got a runner on second base and you're taking stuff down the middle early, and you're like, guys on second base, just try to groove one to the gap here. Like, don't you know what an RBI is? And like, that doesn't matter anymore. And I'm like, stop this.
It's all about the computer program.
Yeah, stop this advanced stuff. Like I still love me a guy who bats 260, hits 35 home runs, but he's always trying to get RBIs in the 4 spot. Like, those things they almost don't exist anymore. It's really, like you got Votto there with like 94 RBIs and like a 410 on base percentage for a guy who's trying to drive in runs. And then this year he started trying to drive in runs and he had one of the best years of his career. I just started trying to hit now. And I'm like, yeah, it's funny. Go figure. It's funny how that can happen. And I don't know. It's just like, the thing is that when you get to those end innings, you're trying to get 1 run. Okay. And your strategy needs to change from early on. You're trying to put a crooked number on the board.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get 2 guys on, you're trying to hit a 3-run homer. There's a 3 on the board now. But at the end, when it's a tie game or it's really tight in whatever the situation, you're just trying to put 1 more across.
Yeah.
And so all the like small ball strategy should be coming out in those situations. And even you go into some of these games where they put the runner on second base, the guys are still trying to jerk one to make it a 2-run yak. And you're like, well, hit a weakly hit ground ball between the second baseman and the shortstop that like makes the outfielder run in, and it's like, that's a run. Like, yeah, like we forgot that you could just poke one out there for that RBI, and they're still trying to hit it 435, but they're trying to pull one 435. So it's just, I really feel like, and you see it so much when you get to postseason baseball, which makes me laugh. You get to postseason baseball and guys are stealing bases like crazy. Guys are squaring up to bunt. Guys are doing all of the things that they laugh at you to do in the regular season. Mm-hmm. And then you have to do them come postseason time. And you haven't done them all regular season. And you see guys just like bunting, and they're just the most embarrassing bunts you've ever seen. And but Tampa plays that way all the time. Mm-hmm. Tampa never plays a game that isn't a postseason game. All their style is. Milwaukee's almost gotten to that point too, where with the way that they use their bullpen, and Hader will come in early to face the heart of the lineup as opposed to just waiting to use them in the 9th. And, that's how you have to do it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They played 2 different styles. Mm-hmm. Yankees tried to do that. Yankees tried to play one style all year, and then they get to the postseason and they're like, well, let's try to put some speed out there and some good defense. And like,
let's send Aaron Judge from like first base on a ball like shot off the monster. Yeah,
we got to go. We got to try to score them. And I don't know. It's when you don't have that team that literally can beat. With Tampa, it's just a bunch of interchangeable parts.
Oh, it's crazy.
You can always put in we need a faster guy here. Take this piece out. We need this pitcher to be in now. We need a ground ball righty, and we got him. We got this. We got every single piece for like what, $50 million in payroll. How do they do it?
It still befuddles me. I can't get past it based on the fact that like I see so many people like talking about, oh, this is Moneyball winning. This is proof that it can win. And listen, if the Rays win, then that's an example of it working. But to this date, I don't think there has been a legit example of a Moneyball franchise winning the World Series. The closest thing that I have is the 2015 Kansas City Royals, but they still had to go out and they still had to get Johnny Cueto. They still had to make legit moves and get big pieces in order to elevate themselves over the top. I'm not going to really say Nelson Cruz was like, obviously he's been a big help for them, but I'm not saying like Nelson Cruz was like, oh my God, you had to go out and get like this big signing or anything like that. No, Nelson Cruz, I think, was on a decent contract. So, I mean, like the Rays haven't had to get like that big of a piece, but so honestly, if they win it, that will be kind of the first example, I think, of a legit Moneyball team, like, following through on their strategy till the bitter end and doing it.
Yeah. And where I feel like if they do it this season, they are a Moneyball team. They are a very, like, don't get me wrong, they're incredibly advanced analytically, but a lot of their policies, a lot of their strategies that they follow are very old school baseball concepts.
Yeah,
they really are. Like Kiermaier in center field, dynamite center fielder, Zunino behind the plate, really great defensive catcher. Like these are old school concepts that go back to the dawn of the game, right? So it's just like, for as advanced as they are, they stay really true to.
Well, Kami, if that means I don't have to necessarily, if this means I don't have to necessarily say that Moneyball is winning, then I'll take that as well.
Sure too. I just mean that, like, Cash, like, as a manager, embraces all of that analytical stuff, but he's very much like a Billy Martin with the way that he'll go out and it's not left to a computer, it's left to his imagination on how that he can use those chess pieces, right? And so it's very, very analytical, but it's very human in its construction, right? It's not just leaving things up to numbers. It's and I don't know. They're a good ball club. They just really are. And who knows? They might be playing in Montreal in the next little while here, anyways. Honestly. So that's going to be the biggest, greatest. If that team ends up shifting and moving, like, teams are always bad that move.
Yeah,
this is a team that's first place, doing the best they've ever done. They have like one of the best farm systems and the talent pools coming up. And you could potentially see that team move to a different location.
Well, you know why they don't get fans to the ballpark, right?
Because Tropicana just sucks.
Well, Tropicana sucks. Don't get me wrong, but I ended up realizing that I wasn't too sure of this. I think it's a bit of a pathetic reason, but I guess to get to the Trop in St. Petersburg, there's this one bridge that you have to take, and it's like always like a pain in the to get over it. And with all the Rays having their like games like towards the night, the rush hour traffic and it's like unreal there. So enough people just say, like, I'm going to be stuck in traffic for 4 hours. I'm going to go have to watch a baseball game for 4. And then I'm going to have to get back on this bridge. And it's going to turn into like a 12-hour ordeal just to go watch the Rays play.
Oh man. Yeah. And you see the videos of it when you go watch when anybody goes to play Tampa Bay, you see that the huge, long, arcing upwards bridge that you're talking about.
And I guess just with commutes and everything, it's ridiculous to get into the game.
It's sad that at this point, like, that stadium, how old is that stadium? They moved into an old stadium when they created the franchise. Like, that wasn't built brand new.
Yeah, what was that even for? Like,
exactly. That's at this point you would have thought that they would have built the Tampa Bay Rays a stadium.
I mean, it looks like an old parking garage.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it does. It's got those coiled little parking circles on the side.
It feels like you're playing in either a parking garage or a blimp hangar.
Or a Japanese stadium.
Yeah.
Like with the like I've seen videos of
but in those
plays.
Yeah, and those stadiums that were built like in the 60s.
Yes. That's what this feels like. And it's completely white roof. Like, how are these things? And you can hit it on the catwalk for a double.
Yeah. Oh my God. Those rules are the worst too. Like, when you have to have like you have to have specific rules, like, to play in your stadium. It's almost like when Boston back in the day, I don't know if you know about this, the ladder on the green, there's like a ladder on the Green Monster. And it used to be that if it got stuck in the ladder, it was a ground rule triple.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it was like the only ballpark that actually had that. Then baseball was like, no, we can't just be having ground rule triples. This is ridiculous. so they got rid of that rule.
That's insane.
But no. So, obviously there's been a ton of great, stories in baseball. I think I've only ever talked with you, Kami, about baseball and movies. I think that's all I've kind of, I mean, we've roasted Space Jam together. We've talked about your personal movies and everything like that. But I do want to do a change of pace right here, and I do want to get into the NHL because there have been some great stories that you've been covering as well, and some stories that I've been seeing. Obviously, I believe hockey's back. What the 16th or so is when hockey comes back. So like almost in like a week or so.
Yeah, I got a fantasy draft on Monday.
Okay.
So it's right around the corner.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm a Bruins fan, but like I don't like know all the nuances and all like the little things like that. I'll watch playoff hockey, and if you tell me, hey, do you want to go watch a hockey game live? I'll watch a hockey game live because I sometimes have a trouble like following the puck on TV during the playoffs. It doesn't become an issue, but if it's just like, oh, it's game like 23 of the like whatever season, I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'll give it a shot, see if I can see what's going on. But literally hockey, if any level, give me tickets, I will go and I will have an amazing time. Cause like, I love watching that sport live.
Oh yeah.
No, it's great. But then I remember, there have been just some crazy stories. I can't wait for the Bruins to be back. Who are you a fan of personally? I know with baseball, you've kind of said you're more a fan of the sport than teams at this point, but who are you a fan of specifically in hockey? Or who'd you at least grow up, with? That might be an easier one because it could have shifted by now. But was there a certain team that you grew up with, or were you kind of a player guy?
Yeah, I was a fan of the Oilers growing up. They have that incredible dynasty that they had with Gretzky and Messier and Coffey and all those players, and then the ineptitude that they fell into for a very, very long time, and then being gifted the god of the sport all over again in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and not being able to do really anything with that, and kind of like, fumbling around. I think that was one of the worst things to happen to hockey was Connor McDavid going to Edmonton, because it was like, that's the worst place for him to go. I wish he was in New York. I wish he was in Boston. I wish he was in Los Angeles. I wish he was in somewhere to sell the sport as opposed to Edmonton, where I feel bad. But I don't know, the teams that I like the Avalanche are an incredible team to watch nowadays. I think New York Rangers, I know you probably don't want to hear that, but they've got
my dad was a Rangers fan growing up.
Yeah.
My dad's from Long Island, so he actually grew up a Rangers fan. He was a Mets fan. He was a Giants fan. So I'm actually not like, I'm not like a bitter like Rangers like rival. Like I actually don't hate the Rangers.
Well, yeah, they got like Lafreniere and Panarin and Mika Zibanejad, and that team's got some like firepower on it.
Oh yeah.
Boston though, you've got Marchand and Krejci and not Krejci. I'm sorry. What am I speaking? Pasternak.
Yeah,
there he is. Yeah, there's Pasternak. There you go.
Yeah,
and Bergeron, right?
Had to finagle that. Yeah, Bergeron's like 37 or something now, and he's still he's still doing good.
Still a really good player.
Yeah, no. I ended up getting this shirt. I went to it was game 2, Bruins Blue Jackets. It was the year the Bruins were making their run towards the Stanley Cup final. It was like a triple overtime game. Bruins ended up losing, but my God, was this thing like an awesome game? I mean, it was awesome. It was awesome to watch. I mean,
absolutely.
My dad ended up getting some of the box seats through his work. So we were watching it through there, which is a unreal experience. I mean, listen, watching it in the stands is something else too, but like it's a very weird experience. Like when you're watching like these guys like duking it out on the ice, and then it's just like, oh, do you want to grab something off like this plate? And I'm like I do not like feel like I'm like good enough to be here, but I was like, yeah, sure. Like it's so weird, like when like you'll like be cheering this team on, and then you go off and there's like just like catered food, and it's like this is just like a crazy like thing to be doing. It was awesome. But so we did that, and then we had some friends at the game. They were up like a little higher in the stands, and we knew they were there. So around like one of the overtimes, we ended up like, we realized it. So my dad and my brother, they ended up running up and like, they just like took our tickets, like so that way, like they could like get them in, and they all like, we get them in right as like the overtime starts. And it was just like, that was like the first Bruins game I ever went to. It was a great experience.
Oh man, that sounds incredible.
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, I like watching hockey live. I've had a tough time like getting into like all like the sports stories of it, but I know you've had some. I know you've had some. You've been covering some stories lately on your channel. I expect that probably with baseball, going in once it hits the off season, I'll probably expect to see some more hockey content maybe out of you as the season progresses and some of the storylines there. We'll obviously see what happens. But, one of the big stories that I saw you cover, very recently on your channel was the NHL's was apparently the NHL's having a bit of a drug problem right now. I don't know too much. I don't know too much about this. So I'll kind of let you take it away and basically explain what's going on right now.
Well, okay. So you've got Tom Cicito, who is a ex-enforcer for the Vancouver Canucks. And he's coming out talking about how he was kind of being pushed Ambien for a big chunk of his career. Robin Lehner, who is the goalie for the Las Vegas Golden Knights, he said the same thing, that he was kind of pushed that for a big chunk of his career. And it's I don't want to like personally, but like I had an ex who took it like to help her sleep and stuff like that. And it would turn her into a zombie. And she would even talk about it. She's like, I completely mentally shut off when that stuff's in me. And when you see the players and like, when you look at pictures of Tom Cicito, it almost looks like he's like in a trance out there on the ice. And it's just wild to think that these players are being pretty much pushed drugs like that. Like, especially when you come from baseball, where baseball has gone through its drug issues.
Oh, and something you mentioned too was that, like, if I think you said if hockey had like the drug enforcement that baseball did, it'd be like a good majority of the players wouldn't be out there.
Yeah, I don't want to be mean to hockey players, but I think like 75% of the league would test positive for something. Jesus. Like, and like, I guess this is bold and very polarizing and stuff to say, but like everyone knows how big cocaine is in hockey. Like cocaine is it's everywhere. And the approach
it's like the NBA in the 80s almost.
Yeah, and the NHL's never really dealt with any big drug issues. They've just never dealt with it. It's almost like they're kind of too small to deal with it. Which they are. They're like, they do about a quarter of the attendance that baseball does in a season, and for some reason they've just slipped by that big, huge kind of drug controversy. And it's funny because you hear about what players are potentially doing in the off season, for performance enhancing stuff. You hear about what they do casually during the season. Like the stories that you hear of them after the game, and the consumption that they go through after every single game is legendary. And that never has gone away. That's not like it's some story of like, 80s hockey was full of like this. It's like 2021 hockey is still full of this.
Yeah, like I mean, it's like the way you're describing it. I mean, I remember, I don't know if did you end up watching The Last Dance during like COVID with like the whole Michael Jordan documentary or anything like that? Yeah, it's kind of giving me a bit of a reminder of that when Jordan was talking about all the Bulls teammates that were like doing a bunch of this stuff during like after games pretty much. And it was like just common, like they'd be in their hotel rooms and doing stuff. And Jordan said like, obviously he wanted to like win and he had that kind of a mentality about himself. But, it seems like something that, couldn't be happening in 2021. It seems like something that would be like 40 years ago at this point, but it's crazy that it's still.
Yeah. And yeah, like I said, like with baseball, if I don't know. I really feel like if it would probably be like at least 50% of the league would test positive for something.
Yeah.
And that's just it's incredible.
Yeah, no, because as a Boston sports fan, I'm also a Celtics fan. So one of the sports stories that comes to mind is Len Bias. And I don't know if you're too familiar on Len Bias, but do you know too much about him or no?
I'm not really familiar.
So during the like height of the Celtics like dynasty, like back when they had Bird, Parrish, like all the guys like on their team, they somehow, I think they made a trade with the Trailblazers or someone, and like so they're like during the height of their success, and they managed to get like the number 2 pick in the NBA draft. So they have all these guys, and like they had just come off winning the championship, and they get the number 2 pick in the draft. And I don't know, I forget who went 1, but they ended up drafting this kid Len Bias. And, he was a very good college prospect. A lot of people had high hopes for him. The day after he got drafted, he overdosed on cocaine and died.
That's insane.
Number 2 pick in the NBA draft.
That's insane.
And it's something.
I remember.
And Boston, you can't. There's no real kind of compensation you can get for that. It's just like, yeah, this happens, and a lot of people kind of attribute that. Obviously, it was a tragic death, but you look at what happened to the Celtics franchise in the '90s. They went into kind of a dark ages, and people kind of think I don't know if you know about too much about Reggie Lewis. He was a guy that was also a good player for the Celtics. They don't know what happened with him, but he just collapsed on the court and also died. It was like 2 tragic deaths for the Celtics in the span of only a couple years. So Reggie Lewis and Len Bias, and they think had those 2 stuck together, the Celtics wouldn't have had the dark ages in the '90s that they had, where they just completely weren't even in the conversation for NBA playoff runs. And looking back on it now, it's insane.
Yeah.
So I hope it doesn't get to that case with an NHL player, but it's really unfortunate. Something I did see today, though, was Montreal Canadiens goalie Carey Price apparently is stepping away to enter a player assistance program. I don't know how much this is going to be related to this. I know it's for alcohol and substance abuse. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be. I don't know how tied in he is with this whole situation, but I found it interesting based on the fact that with this whole story kind of coming to light, this is now happening with one of the more prolific goalies in the sport.
Well, yeah, and it's insane to think that, because he just brought the Canadians all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, and that nobody expected that of him. And he's such a solid, like, role model type guy, especially in Montreal.
Oh yeah,
and to think that, yeah, like, it just goes to show that he's clear. If it's substance abuse and he's dealing with that stuff, then that's somebody that, if he's doing it, then how many are caught up in that, right? Like, and clearly it didn't come down on him. He didn't test positive for something. He didn't, pee in a cup and they say, hey, you need to go in for this. This is, voluntary. I don't know, it's probably voluntary, exactly. So, I mean,
yeah, exactly. I don't know what it's going to look like going forward, but it's been like that. That's been a crazy story. I'm going to be kind of waiting to see I'm going to be very interested to see what comes out next about this, because this doesn't seem like this is going to be something that goes away. I think too easily this season.
Well, yeah, and there's been so many issues with, like, past enforcers dying very, very young, because hockey is a CTE sport, right? Like, you got a lot of, yeah, and you got to remember that there was that time where Crosby had he had multiple concussions within the course of like 3 years. I think he had 3 concussions, and you were worried about, like, him stepping away from the game and the side effects from that, and then what you try to potentially do on a drug level to get your mind right or get your body right after, because those impacts in hockey, like, hockey is faster than football, and there's walls.
Yeah.
And you play it 60 minutes nonstop 82 times a year, not 16.
No.
Right? Like, it is a physically grueling sport. And what these guys are put through is very much like, if you've ever seen a movie like Any Given Sunday, where they're pretty much patching those players together, and you see what they're like, all the concoctions of drugs that they're putting through these massive guys' systems. It's very similar to that in the NHL, to try to keep them out there, keep them rolling. And yeah, man, it's
crazy. So, I mean,
it is nuts. I hope that it doesn't go through the same the situation that baseball did, because baseball was a 20-year ordeal to clean it.
Yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't go through. I'm hoping it doesn't have a base.
Yeah.
What's up? I lost you there for a sec.
I just said through the cocaine of the 80s, through the steroids of the 90s, it just rolled on for almost 2 decades.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping it doesn't take that, and I'm hoping it doesn't take another Len Bias, frankly, for for my sake. I'm hoping it doesn't take that for anything to happen. But in kind of a, also in hockey news, also a very serious situation, but something I think that, can maybe have a little more, a little more kind of poking fun at with is Evander Kane of the San Jose Sharks. This guy is just I don't know what to say about this guy. I mean, he's a great player, but at this point, with all the controversies going on with him, it makes you just really wonder, like when do you just pull the plug? He seems like the Antonio Brown of the NHL, basically, with all the with all the ridiculous stuff that's going on with him. I mean, I first reported on him when I heard the allegations of him possibly betting on his own games as a member of his team. I know, you ended up bringing up to me that he has had some domestic violence issues. So there's been some crazy things going on with this guy, but this is one of the crazier ones that I've heard yet. I mean, betting on your own games is pretty extreme, but it recently just came out that in the wake of the NHL's, mandate for players to be vaccinated and trying to, have most of the league be vaccinated against COVID. It's being alleged that Evander Kane is now under investigation for using a fake vaccine card to get him to, allow him to participate in the season. And, I'm not going to get into the particular politics of like whoever of like, oh, you want to take the vaccine, you want to do this. I'm not that isn't this show, but it's not even just to, come out and just say like, oh, I'm not doing it, like sue me or do anything like that. To fake it. And listen, I could say that there was like, there could be some leniency with other guys, and I'm not even saying I want to do that, but just for this guy in particular, it's so extreme. And I mean, I saw, after, and I could understand that, listen, if these controversies were in like one specific area, like if it was, if it was, specifically maybe the gambling thing or anything like that, or even, the gambling and the domestic violence, he could maybe, I saw him do an ESPN interview. I forget with who, but he ended up coming out and saying, like, oh, these allegations are false. I'm being set up. And I could look at that and I could just be like, okay, this guy's had a bad break. Someone's out to get him. These are some false accusations, and he's trying to clear his name. And it's just a really bad case of, someone trying to, take advantage of, a popular athlete and take him down. And, you could make that case, but when it's controversies in so many different areas, and it's like not even just like, it's not even like, oh, my ex is trying to say that I'm gambling and like I'm doing all this stuff and I'm betting on my team, and he could say like, listen, I've had a tough time with money, but I'd never do something like that. And he seems like so confident in himself for being like this kind of a guy. But I mean, another good example I think of too is John Jones in the MMA. Like he's one of the most dominant pound for pound fighters, like, of this generation, if not all time. But he just has so many different problems outside of the arena and outside of like his playing and outside of his like area of play. And it just seems like this is the case with Kane. I don't know. What are your thoughts here?
Okay. So with Evander, the domestic abuse stuff with his wife, these are allegations, and there's something up with his relationship with his wife, because his wife seems very much up for trying to destroy him in the public's eye. So that all is going to come down to how that breaks down in court on those two. I do know that he owes casinos upwards of $25 million.
Yeah. So
for
again,
his gambling. This was a guy who, as soon as he signed his rookie contract, was taking stacks of money and using them as phones and like taking pictures of stacks of money all over him. And I said in a video about, I don't know, 2 months ago, talking about his gambling debts, when you take out a big stack of money to take a picture of it, you don't go back to the bank and put it back in.
No.
You go and you waste it. And that's all that guy would do, is just take out big wads of cash, and it would make him feel good to go and throw it around all willy-nilly. It's like we're in a time period of investing in cryptocurrency or whatever, right? And it's just funny that his cryptocurrency is red 32 is he's just. And when you get that much in debt, you can't trust what the gambling could be, because the gambling can be on you. When you're someone, I don't do anything that you can gamble upon in my everyday life. You can't go to Vegas and bet, is hey, Kami going to put his toilet paper up this time over the roll or under the roll? Like, you can't bet on that. There's nothing in my life that is bettable.
I mean, the only thing you could bet on is that you're going to bury Gerrit Cole in a TikTok video. But besides that,
Oh, if that's there, you should bet on that one, because I'll probably keep doing it.
Yeah.
But
just mess with it one time and actually just do a praise
one
video
more time just to get my money in.
Then just bet against yourself. Yeah.
But there's nothing that you can bet on me for. But for him, he is a part of something that you can bet on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're so addicted to it, and there is a betting line that literally has you on it, and you could go up, and he is known for getting stupid penalties. He's known for getting just an incredibly amount of stupid penalties. So who knows, one of those games, he's like, it's a 1-goal game late, takes a stupid penalty, puts the other team on the power play, they score, he brings home some money, and it's all on whether you trust him or not, because who's putting the money down, you don't know.
No, exactly too. And I know, and it could also be the case is if like he's in with like bookies or anything like that. And I don't know the whole situation with him, but if he's in with certain guys like that, and like, even if you were like betting for your team to win, or you're doing stuff like that, like, I think it was like, I think when Pete Rose came out, I think he said, like, and I don't know, like, I want Pete Rose to be in the Hall of Fame. Listen, that's just my personal opinion. But Pete Rose was coming out and he was saying like, oh, he was saying, I'd never bet on my team to lose. I would only bet for like a team to win or something like that. And I don't even, did he ever come out and did he ever say he bet for the Reds, or did he ever?
Yeah, I believe he only bet for the Reds to win. And that seems very much his personality type, that like he was a very win.
Oh yeah. And listen, good that you're trying to bet on your team to win. But when you're working with those guys in Vegas and it's almost like, oh, I'm not going to bet on my team to win today, but I'll bet on them to win tomorrow. It's like that still kind of gives the signal to other guys to say, oh, so you don't trust the starter as much as you trust this guy. So I'm going to bet, I'm going to bet this way. I don't really like that. I think Pete Rose has served his thing. That's a whole different discussion. Like that could be a whole episode, but listen, Kane's got to get something right. I mean, I don't know what this guy needs to do, but he needs to figure something out.
The vaccine card is got to be the stupidest thing ever. It's like, once again, wherever you sit on the issue, whether you want it or not, Tyler Bertuzzi does not want to take the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And the Detroit Red Wings are trying to figure that out based on him coming to them and saying, this is the decision that I've made. I guess I'm going to forfeit some money here. But this is the decision that I'm making. Kane, with all of the eyes that are on him for all the ridiculous things that he's done, somehow believes that he can like cross international borders with a fake vaccine card.
Like, it's
like,
not
this
even
isn't going to a bar or
it's not exactly. It's not like using like some fake ID to get into some like shady club or anything like this. It isn't even like me and you doing this to do something. Like, listen, I think the Border Patrol would be able to like pick out a fake vaccine card even for me and you, but it'd be like, okay, like we're kind of just regular schmucks, like we're doing our thing, and we're really, we're average people. This guy, you're a top paid, like top of the line athlete. How do you think that what makes you think that like guys are just going to turn a blind eye to you? Like that's where I'm just like, you're going to be like at the forefront of these people's attention.
Yeah. And you have a past of criminal activity, you
stupid things. So yeah,
you get red flagged when you have that stuff kind of come up. So why wouldn't people be like, oh, this doesn't seem legitimate? Like, that's the first person that you're going to look at. And for him to and it got brought up before he even traveled.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even with the team right now because of his other issues, and he was doing this and got caught doing it before he ever even traveled over the border between Canada and the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So if he got caught now, it's just he was going to get arrested.
Yeah,
you get arrested for that. If he would have had a a fake vaccine card coming into Canada, he would have been, I think there's a 1-year prison sentence or maybe even more. There's something pretty large in punishment, like $1 million fine. There's some ridiculous numbers there.
I mean, yeah, it's not even just faking just a vaccine card. It's just faking like a public document and stuff like that too. It's forged documents. If you go into somewhere with a fake passport, you're going to get arrested.
Yeah. He's in a situation where it's like, if he wants to play hockey, he has to take the vaccine. It's like, and it's because he's put himself in a position where he's $30 million in debt to casinos, and he needs to make money playing hockey because that's all he can do. Do you want to pay back your debt? Okay, well, the only way that you can do that is to get vaccinated and to play hockey. I'm sorry, I'm not forcing the vaccine on anyone, but you put yourself in a hole, and the only way that you can dig it out is do what you're kind of talented at doing.
And it literally went from being again, regardless of where the vaccine thing is, it's like you can be very for it, very against it, like somewhere in between. But it's like the forging is where it's like, if you're just if you're just not about getting it, like just like come out and say like, listen, I don't want to get this. I don't feel like doing it. So, F off. And that's not my persona, but if that's what he wanted to do, then he could do that.
That's what Tyler Bertuzzi did.
Exactly. But somehow he managed to make it look worse.
No. Yeah, he did.
It's so bad.
With all of this other stuff happening within the last 4 or 5 months, and then this to happen, it's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. But Kami, I do think it is time to say that we are now officially down to the wire. We've had a great number of topics during this episode. Thank you so much again for coming on. It has been a great episode, and obviously, after coming on today, we ended up talking about both the Red Sox, Yankees, and Cardinals and Dodgers wild card games. We talked about Chris Taylor's heroics, as well as Gerrit Cole folding under pressure against the Boston Red Sox. We talked about the Blue Jays strategy card being stolen by the Rays and all the drama unfolding over there. We talked about MLB ending their extra inning base runner rule going into this playoffs and further on down the line. And in NHL news, we talked about the NHL's growing drug problem that's now coming to light, as well as Evander Kane being under investigation for a fake vaccine card. All of this has just been absolutely crazy news. Obviously the fall is a great time of the year for sports talk. I can't wait to do more stuff on this show. But if you guys are not falling down to the wire at this point, what the heck are you guys doing? We're available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can listen to podcasts, and as well as YouTube. But the main hub you can reach us through is our Instagram. You can follow that at down.tothewire. Again, at down.tothewire. Kami, is there anything that you want to shout out real quick? Obviously yourself.
Just my TikTok account, my TikTok channel, which is hey_Kami, COMMY. Same thing for YouTube. It's just hey Kami. There's no underscore on that one. And just baseball content as always. If you guys aren't familiar with the foreign substance stuff that happened in baseball, my channel is the perfect place to go back and literally watch the history of it, because it's all
perfect jumping off point. So obviously, man, thank you so much for coming on again. But from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Joel Laflamme, or Hey Kami.
And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.